Imagine borrowing a tool from a friend. A valuable tool, one you cannot afford to replace. Then, while working near a river, it slips from your hands. You watch helplessly as it sinks beneath the water, gone forever. For most people, that would be the end of the story. But what if God cared about that lost tool? What if the creator of heaven and earth intervened over something as small as a borrowed axe? And what if a piece of iron suddenly floated to the surface of the water? This is one of the most overlooked miracles in the entire Bible. A miracle that reveals a powerful truth. Nothing is too small for God's attention. This is the story of the floating axe head. 2 Kings 2, 1-7. Long before this miracle took place, God was working through his servant Elisha. The prophet Elisha had become known throughout Israel. Kings sought his counsel, the poor sought his help, and many young men desired to learn under his guidance. These young men were often called the sons of the prophets. They were students preparing themselves for service to God. As more people joined their community, their meeting place became overcrowded. The small building where they gathered was no longer large enough. Every room was filled. Every corner was occupied. The ministry was growing. The students knew something had to be done. One day, they approached Elisha with a suggestion. The young prophets spoke respectfully. They said, "Look, the place where we meet with you is too small for us." Then they proposed a solution. Nearby flowed the Jordan River. Large trees grew along its banks. The students suggested gathering timber and building a larger place to live and study. It was a practical idea, simple, reasonable, and Elisha approved. The prophet answered, "Go." But the students wanted their teacher with them. One of them asked, "Please come with your servants." Elisha agreed, and together they traveled to the Jordan. No one knew they were about to witness a miracle. The atmosphere was probably joyful. The young men were excited. The new building would provide room for growth, room for worship, room for learning, room for ministry. The sound of axes striking wood soon echoed through the trees. Branches fell, logs were gathered, the project moved forward. Everything seemed ordinary. Nothing appeared supernatural. Nothing appeared miraculous. Just faithful servants doing honest work. Then, disaster struck. One of the students swung his axe. Again and again he struck the tree. Then suddenly, the metal axe head flew off the handle. Perhaps the wooden shaft had weakened. Perhaps it had become loose from repeated use. Whatever the cause, the result was immediate. The heavy iron head spun through the air and plunged into the Jordan River. Splash! The student froze. His heart sank. The others stopped working. The sound of chopping ceased. For modern readers, losing an axe head may not seem significant, but in those days, iron tools were expensive. Very expensive. Many people could not afford them. And then came the detail that made the situation worse. The young prophet cried out, "Alas, my master, it was borrowed!" This was not merely an inconvenience. This was a crisis. The axe did not belong to him. Someone had trusted him with it. Someone had loaned it to him. Now it was gone, lost beneath the muddy waters of the Jordan. Imagine his thoughts. How would he explain this? How would he repay it? How long would it take to replace? Would the owner believe him? What had begun as a day of progress suddenly became a day of anxiety. Yet what happened next would reveal something remarkable about God. Most people might have said, "It is only an axe," or "Forget about it," or "You'll have to replace it somehow." But Elisha understood something important. God cares about the concerns of his people, even the concerns others might consider insignificant. The prophet calmly asked, "Where did it fall?" The young man pointed toward the spot. Perhaps everyone looked at the water. Perhaps they wondered what Elisha intended to do. After all, iron sinks. Everyone knows that. Iron does not float. The laws of nature are clear. The axe was gone. Or so it seemed. Elisha walked toward the riverbank. He cut off a stick from a nearby tree. Then he threw the stick into the water where the axe head had fallen. At first, nothing appeared unusual. Then, something impossible happened. The iron axe head rose from the depths. Slowly, miraculously, supernaturally. The heavy metal object floated on the surface of the water. Iron was doing what iron cannot do. The God who created the laws of nature had temporarily suspended them. The same God who parted the Red Sea, the same God who stopped the Jordan River, the same God who multiplied oil and raised the dead, had intervened for a borrowed axe. The students must have stood in amazement. They were witnessing divine power over creation itself. Then Elisha spoke. His instruction was simple. Pick it up. Notice something important. Elisha did not pick it up for him. The miracle brought the axe within reach. The student still had to take hold of it. Immediately, the young prophet reached out his hand and recovered the axe head. The crisis was over. What had been lost was found. What seemed impossible had become reality. At first glance, this may seem like one of the smallest miracles in Scripture. No armies were defeated, no kings were overthrown, no great crowds were fed. Yet God included this story in His Word for a reason, because it reveals His character. God is not only concerned with national crises. He is not only interested in famous people. He is not only present in dramatic moments. He also cares about the ordinary struggles of everyday life. The lost things, the forgotten worries, the private concerns, the burdens no one else notices. The floating axe head reminds us that nothing is too small to bring before God. Lessons from the story. This amazing story teaches the following lessons. 1. God cares about everyday problems. To the world, it was only an axe. To the young prophet, it was a serious burden. God cared enough to intervene. 2. What is impossible for man is possible for God. Iron does not float, but God is not limited by natural laws. 3. God notices faithful servants. The students were serving faithfully when the miracle occurred. 4. God restores what is lost. The axe seemed gone forever, yet God brought it back. 5. Miracles often happen in ordinary places, not in a palace, not on a battlefield, but beside a river during a work project. Remember, a borrowed axe was lost. A worried servant cried out. A prophet threw a stick into the water, and suddenly, iron floated. The miracle was not about an axe. It was about a God who sees, a God who cares, a God who knows every burden carried by His children first. Because if God cared about a borrowed axe head beside the Jordan River, how much more does He care about you? Always remember that God sees and knows everything about you. He knows your worries, pains, and all that you go through every day. He is ever present and available to help you. All you need is to make it a habit to always call on Him, and He will show up to attend to your needs. Let Jeremiah 29:11 be your daily guide and watchword. Thank you for listening and learning with me. God bless you.